Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Schwartz. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the next episode of Cine-Draw. Today we are going to be continuing my drawing of Deku from My Hero Academia, while I discuss with you the movie that I saw, which this time was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, if you are one of the, I think, 30-some people who watched my first Cine-Draw video, you may remember that I said that I was not going to see this movie. Well, ultimately, I decided that I really wanted to go see a movie, and it was honestly between this one and either Holmes and Watson, which I am... no, I'm not going to go see that. Or Bumblebee, which I've heard is really good, but I have also been burned by Transformers movies, the live-action ones, for so long that I just can't make myself go and see another one. Or the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I was nervous because I knew that the really deliberately stilted animation on the main characters was going to mess with me a little bit. But I decided that I could try to tough it out, because I've heard so many good things about this movie. And all I can say is, in 3 words, fun, but ow. let me try to explain. So the idea with Into the Spider-Verse is that, well, basically, I know I'm super late to the bandwagon on this one, but it's basically supposed to be like a fun, super comic booky movie, not really focused on any of the dark or serious stuff that some other movies, superhero movies, have been of late, but instead it's just a really colorful, wild, fun romp through a lot of Spider-Man's silly alternate realities, where you get to see these Spider-Men from different universes and different aesthetics. There's a Spider-Man from a gritty 1920s era noir, where he's only black and gray, and so he's amazed by a Rubik's Cube because it's got color on it. There's a anime-inspired Spider-Girl that has a sentient spider robot thing. I'm not really sure what's going on there. There's Spider-Ham, a Spider-Man character from a Looney Tunes universe, who is alternate identity is Peter Porker, which I think is really funny. And Spider-Gwen, who is Gwen Stacy, who got bitten by a radioactive spider in her dimension. All of those sound very interesting, and the trailers made it seem like those characters were going to be like a big part of this story. Them and a more aged, bitter Peter Parker who's tired of being Spider-Man. But ultimately, this movie is not really about them. I'm going to fix up this whole spot right here. The movie isn't really about them. The movie is about Miles Morales, the first African-American Spider-Man. So basically what we have is a Spider-Man origin story jam-packed into a Spider-Man alternate reality story going on at the same time. And the unfortunate thing that I experienced with the movie was that I didn't really like Miles Morales as a character, at least not enough to be more invested in what he was doing than in what the other characters were doing. And by that I mean that his story in this movie, while good, I do think it's good. I like his father figure character. I like the story that they do with his uncle. I like Miles himself okay. But there's so much other more interesting stuff going on with this movie. That's my dog, excuse her. There's so much more interesting stuff going on in this movie that doesn't involve him, but the movie keeps pulling you away from that stuff so that you can see more of the typical superhero origin story with Miles. You know, he gets bitten by the spider, he starts to learn his powers, he's not sure about if he can handle his powers. He has the mopey scene where he's all sad because he can't handle his powers, and then he realizes, oh wait, I can handle my powers. Let me now go and help the other characters by perfectly controlling my powers that I've had so much trouble controlling with in the past. And all this takes place over like the course of like a day, and it's just not as interesting as the other Spider-Man characters that we see. there's even a point where they're having a big old battle, and they have all their cool costumes and their cool designs, and Miles is just there with a silly Halloween costume Spider-Man outfit that he got from a Stan Lee cameo. And while it's funny, eventually he gets kicked out of the location that they're fighting in and has a separate encounter on his own. And while interesting, it was A, predictable, and B, we didn't get to see the battle with all the other Spider-Man characters because we had to follow Miles. And that's the unfortunate flaw, I feel like, with this movie, is that I don't care about Miles enough to be okay with being taken away from the story of these other characters. I wanted to know more about Spider-Man Noir. I wanted to know more about Penny B. Parker, the anime spider character. I wanted to know more about Spider-Ham. I wanted to see more of Spider-Gwen, because all of them were already established heroes, as opposed to Miles, who spent the entire movie being unsure of his new powers. And I don't know, it bothered me. That's really the part of the movie that bothered me the most story-wise. But the thing that bothered me absolutely the most about the movie was the fact that it literally hurt me to watch. So I mentioned before the stilted character animation on the main cast bothered me in terms of triggering my motion sickness, but I was able to get over it faster than I thought I would. What I was not able to get over was just how insane this movie is when it comes to color and pacing. Oh my lordy. Oh, there was just constant color splashes, there was constant zooms, there was constant comic book panels popping up, there was constant speed lines and motion and the camera moving every which way, to the point where I started to get a pounding headache, and by the end of the movie it was a ragingly bad headache, especially with the end of the movie, where I'm not going to spoil anything if you haven't seen it yet, but there is just literal explosions of color and shapes and light just going off every few seconds, and it was really painful for me to watch. The best way I can describe it is that it felt like I took a drop of acid and then took two kaleidoscopes and jammed one into each of my eyes and started twisting them vigorously while shaking myself around. That is honestly the best way that I can describe my personal experience with watching this movie. And I don't want to, and I'm not trying to be a naysayer just because everyone else really loves it. I wanted to love it because I love animated stuff, and I love movies like this that take a risk in terms of their narrative and in terms of doing something different and inventive. I just wish that we could have had a story that had Miles acting on a more even ground with the other characters, if nothing else then so that we wouldn't have to have the classic scenes of, oh, he's not ready, oh, he's not experienced enough because he literally just got his powers. Oh, wait, they're right, I'm not experienced enough with my powers. Oh, wait, yes I am. I'm gonna perfectly control my powers now so I can go back and help them. This is like a 2-hour movie, and a lot of it is spent with Miles just being sad and mopey about his powers and about his position in life. And while that can be interesting, it's just not as interesting as the other elements of the movie that have been introduced. Especially the fact that the voice actors for Spider-Man Noir and Spider-Ham are, again, John Mulaney for Spider-Ham, and freaking Nicolas Cage for Spider-Man Noir. I didn't know that he was doing that. Like, that was a genuine surprise for me when I heard his voice, and I said, that actually fits really well. I would also say, as a positive for the movie, it has my absolute favorite interpretation of Aunt May that I've ever seen. The Aunt May of the universe that we're in is awesome. She's really cool. She has a cool design and a cool spin to her character. I liked her a lot. Again, I wanted to see more of her. I wanted to see more of the tragic life of the Peter Parker who gets pulled into Miles' dimension. I wanted to see more of everyone else except Miles. I just wish that we could have had a more seasoned or at least semi-experienced Miles that could have helped out a lot more with the story and felt more important to it, instead of just having to truncate his development into I can just do this now because the plot needs me to. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a good movie, but it feels to me more like an experiment of animation rather than a complete story in its own right. It feels like they had the idea for the Spider-Verse, and they also had an idea for introducing Miles Morales to the normal non-comic book reading folks. And I don't think they worked well together, and I wish that it wasn't 2 hours long. I wish that it didn't hurt me to watch it. Again, that might just be a personal problem with me, but I cannot even conceive of watching this movie again. And it wasn't bad, I just did not enjoy myself. At least not as much as I did with Escape Room. I liked Escape Room more than this one because at least it was quicker paced. It never felt slow. There were points in Into the Spider-Verse where I really could have just fallen asleep and not missed anything because it's the same sort of origin story superhero stuff that we've seen before. But I will say, the end credits scene of this movie is absolutely hysterically funny. I really liked that. It was very tongue-in-cheek, very fourth wall breaking. There's a bunch of instances of that in this movie, of fourth wall breaking. And if someone who watches this movie who's a bigger Spider-Man fan than me, there's probably boatloads of Easter eggs and references that I would never catch on to. I just wanted to present my opinion as a non-Spider-Man comic fan. I'm kind of familiar with it. I didn't know about Miles before this movie, and honestly, I'm not really interested enough in his character to check out his comic books after this. I will try to find Spider-Man Noir and Spider-Ham because they seem really entertaining and fun. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's my review of Into the Spider-Verse. It's fun, but it hurt me to watch physically, like it physically hurt me to watch, and I wish there had been more focus on the characters other than Miles. So I'm going to lay down this pencil here in just a minute. Thank you very much for tuning into my second episode of Cine-Draw. I'm thinking in probably the next 2 or 3 episodes I should have this piece finished up and ready and all inked and everything. So, next time will probably be about a week from now. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you guys next time. Have yourselves a good day.